Good morning, everyone. This is John Heerdink. I am the managing member of Tribe Public. Welcome today to Tribe Public's CEO presentation and Q&A event titled Diabetes, Obesity, GLP-1, and the MODD-1 Opportunity with our co-host, Modular Medical, an insulin delivery system technology company preparing to launch a market expansion product with a more accessible and easier to prescribe and easier to pay for and live with technology. The event is targeted to be about 30 minutes session where there's a Q&A at the end. Thanks for those who've sent in their Q&A already. If you haven't and something comes to mind, please share it with us through the Zoom chat feature, and we'll do our best to try to get on this segment. Note that after this, as soon as the video is available, I will be publishing this at the Tribe Public YouTube channel, and you can then view that or share it with others as you move forward. Again, my name is John Heerdink. Our firm, Tribe Public, enables investors and consumers to gain direct corporate access to the leaders of companies that they care about through our in-person luncheon and dinner events across the U.S., now in 34 event sites, and our webinars like today, based to allow those that have joined us from around the world, now over 30 countries, to learn as well through this process. Thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to having this interesting conversation with our co-host, again, Modular Medical, which trades on the Nasdaq symbol MODD, and we have the CEO of the company, Jeb Besser, and largest shareholder here, to help us understand today's news and this topic that he's offered. I do need to ask you to take a look at our disclaimers at Tribe Public, TRIBEPUBLIC.com. Know that I am a shareholder and advisor to the company, and also note that I run an investment advisor called Vista Partners LLC in California, and please view the list of disclaimers there as well at the vistapglobal.com website. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to having Jeb here at Modular Medical present to us today. Note that Modular Medical has been in the news lately and is receiving a great deal of attention as they've received FDA clearance for their MODD-1 insulin pump in the U.S. They're also looking to commercialize this in early 2025. So it's again, congratulations, Jeb and company, for this feat, and we'll look forward to learning more about that as well today. Jeb, if you wouldn't mind just quickly introducing yourself and give us a quick overview, and then pull up your presentation, and then we'll begin.
Okay, great. Thanks for the introduction, John, and the kind words, and welcome everyone. It is an exciting time for the company. I'm Jeb Besser. I'm the CEO, and I'm also the PM of Manchester Management, which is the largest shareholder of Modular Medical. And I currently serve as CEO, and my salary is $1. So one might say that I'm highly incented to be aligned with the current shareholders' interests in terms of trying to make the return on capital as attractive as possible here. So regardless of what you think about what I'm going to say, I hope you at least understand right at the beginning that my heart is in the right place, and alongside yours if you're a current shareholder or considering becoming a shareholder. Okay, with that said, this is an exciting time for us because last Wednesday afternoon we received FDA clearance for our MODD-1 insulin pump. This was after one set of FDA questions, and I'd say, I think we're certainly the smallest company that's gotten an insulin pump cleared. I'd say that we've spent far less money than any other company, and I would say that we're the only pump that targets the 80% of people who currently don't use pumps and aren't well served by the current pumps, and everyone else is focused on I don't want to say the high end, but let's say the high tech, high complexity, expensive portion of the market. We want to provide an easy to use, easy to learn, cost effective solution in an attractive form factor that saves money and provides better care for patients, doctors, and insurance companies. So that's the base product. But I think in terms of the presentation today, what I want to talk about, because it seems like there's a lot of confusion about it when I talk to investors, is our MODD-1, using the MODD-1 as a platform for other applications. And while maybe no one was that interested in using this as a platform for other applications if we had never demonstrated that the FDA was okay with our novel pumping technology, I think now is a good time to discuss why we think there's an opportunity to go into other markets, and more specifically, the market for GLP-1s. So as John said, I'm going to pull up the presentation now. There we go. Okay. So title of the presentation is rather similar to the title of our press release today. It's about using MODD-1 to overcome shortcomings in weekly shots in the GLP-1 weight loss and blood sugar control market. And let's step back for a second and make sure that everyone understands what the GLP-1s are. When we're talking about the GLP-1s, the predominant products in that space right now are Ozempic and Mounjaro from Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, respectively. I'm sure you've seen these products advertised on TV, in pharmacies, talked about in regular life, talked about as like the next great Hollywood diet, talked about for all kinds of reasons, now being tested for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, smoking cessation, alcohol addiction, and everything else under the sun. Morgan Stanley projects that this market will be a $150 billion market in 5 years. And Novo Nordisk, one of the two major players in the space, now has a market cap that exceeds the gross domestic product of Denmark, where the company is based. So this is a space that's just exploding. And as you might expect for a space that's exploding, there are something like 80 or 90 compounds that are already in clinical trials that are follow-ons or derivations of the current products. So the obvious question here is, well, okay, Jeb, why do you think your pump has any relevance here? If I could take a week, why would I ever wear a pump if I could just take a weekly shot and achieve 20% weight loss and much better glycemic control if I take that shot every week for a year? And the answer is you wouldn't. There's no way that you would wear a pump if you can tolerate a weekly shot. However, we can see from a great study that Blue Cross Blue Shield published in June that of their patients or of their reimbursed patients who have gone on a GLP-1, within 4 weeks, 35% of them have stopped therapy, and within 12 weeks, 50% have stopped. And given, I'm sure you know how committed people can be to achieving better results in these two verticals, blood sugar control and weight loss, especially as a person with type 2 diabetes. And so the side effects must be fairly severe. There is some combination of cost and side effects, but the GI side effects are very real and can be very severe for some people. And they include, and once you take a weekly shot, you really don't get to reverse them very much. The PK curve on a weekly shot looks a lot like this. There's a big peak that happens in days 1, 2, 3, and then it tails off and you're kind of in a Goldilocks zone for days, some portion of 3, 4, 5, and then in day 6 and 7, it drops down to well below optimal. And so there are two effects of this. One is that you can experience serious GI side effects like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, etc., and just generally feeling seasick for an entire week. You might experience all of those things in the first half of the drug period, and then in the back half, you might feel like you want to eat your hand because the satiety effect is largely worn off. And so this is just a function of the PK curve. If you can tolerate it, if you're getting great results with GLP-1s, once again, just like if you're getting great results with existing insulin pumps, I applaud you for doing the work and having great results. But there are a lot of people who are not being well served by these one-size-fits-all shots because they need the ability to titrate up and titrate down as you go through the week. And so our concept is, if you can't tolerate a weekly shot, instead of the doctor's next alternative out of the bag being, oh, why don't you just do another shot that works exactly the same way and also lasts for a week, where you're committed to however you feel when you take that shot, for the next week? Or do you want to use one of the older weight loss drugs that has lots of other safety here? Or do you want, or maybe you're a candidate for bariatric surgery? I think a lot of people would say no and no to both of those alternatives. And they want to capture some or all of the benefit. So really, we're targeting this niche of non-responders to the weekly shots. That's the idea. And we think that we can do that because our pump, in its current design, has a bunch of advantages. One, it's easy to use. I don't think the other pumps in the insulin space could be repurposed for this because they require a lot of training and they're very high cost in terms of the initial startup. And two, we have an attractive form factor that I think a casual user would wear. Three, we have a 3 ml reservoir, which is critical for you using the amounts of these drugs to get through 3 days, which is how long our set lasts. And four, we made our device from the beginning out of a kind of plastic that can be readily used for pre-fill, so that we don't have leachability and drug contamination issues if the patient gets drugged by getting delivered 10 cartridges, which are supposed to last for a month. So I think there are some unique aspects to our product, and we can hit these patients with a much more consistent flow. Instead of having the big peak early and the big tail off late, you can have mechanically the same dose all the time. Or maybe you can get away with what we want to test with our proof of concept study is, can you get away with a much lower dose for your baseline? Because we know now that to affect GLP-1, that the effect of GLP-1s is by staying on that receptor all the time. And then when you push the button, you bolus around meals to get better satiety, especially later in the week, and better overall blood sugar control. Perhaps we can achieve the same effect with a much lower baseline level for those with a sensitive stomach and a sensitive digestive tract. So that's, now, if you're going to do that though, you don't want to use a long-acting GLP-1 like what's available in the weekly shots. And the reason you don't want to do that is if day one you feel good and you push that bolus button and you just ramped up your dose, you're committed to that new dose for a week. It's not going to leave your system. It's designed to stay in your system for a week. What you want is the ability to titrate up and titrate down. And the way you do that is by using a rapid acting molecule. And so the molecule that we're testing right now is a drug that was approved back in 2010. And it was the original GLP-1, but it's very, very quick acting. And it was originally dosed as a 3 times a day bolus. So it was probably in your system for like an hour a day. And because it was the first one, they had no idea of this long-term weight loss effect if you were on the receptor all the time. But it's ideal for a pump where you can mechanically dose up, dose down, and provide that same constant level of care that you get with the weekly shots, but have the ability to put it on pause, turn it off, or turn it up, depending on how you feel. And we think there's a market for that kind of personalized medicine. So we're studying it in rodents. The rodent metabolic model actually has been highly translatable to humans, much more so than virtually any other disease we've ever seen. We're studying it Gubra, who is the gold standard in diabetes-induced obesity mouse models. And they are right next door to Novo Nordisk and have 250 employees. So I think any results that come out of them would be highly credible. And I don't think we have to beat the current weekly shots. We just have to be equivalent. If we are better, great. If we're a little bit worse, that's okay, because once again, we're targeting people who want the effect and can't tolerate the weekly shots. So we just have to be better than whatever other alternative they have and significant enough for them to care. So I think it's an exciting low-risk proposition for us to take an existing FDA-cleared model and see if we can adopt it to another product. And we'll run the proof of concept study. If the results are promising, we'll run a quick first-in-human study, and we'll seek to partner it with a pharmaceutical company that wants to take it the rest of the way. Because, as I said, there are many, many drugs in this space in development, some of which might be appropriate for this model. And I suspect that there are many other products that we don't know about that are sitting in someone's broom closet, because why would you want to develop a rapid acting any further right now? And that broom closet might be at a company that we don't know, or it might be at one of the big guys who's already a major player in this space. So that's the base story. You have to, in order to address this market, you're going to have to bundle the pump with the product. And that means a low cost, easy to use platform that's low risk in terms of its ability to be cleared by the FDA, and the dosing. And you have to dose these products in very small doses, just like you do with insulin. So the accuracy that we have from bringing our pump from the insulin market is highly appropriate for this market. and our form factor and our ease of use is highly appropriate for this market. So that's the concept. It's, the number of times I've had conversations about this where people then come back and say, but wouldn't you just take a weekly shot? I think, I just want to reiterate again, I don't think you would ever use this product if you could tolerate the weekly shots and titrate up and get the effect that you want. This is for non-responders. It's for a different group of patients. Just like our mantra in insulin. We don't want to serve the same patients who are already well served. If you want a simpler experience, you can absolutely switch to us, but we're really targeting the people who are getting very suboptimal care because they're on multiple daily injections, and we can make their lives easier and better. And fortunately, the FDA seems to agree with us so far, at least in terms of insulin. And this is another promising area that we can explore. And just so everyone's clear, the cost to us to run this program is less than $200,000 to evaluate whether or not we can get a quick shot on goal here that we could partner with someone. So, I mean, that's given how far we've come with the platform. It seems foolish not to address that, given that even a 2% share of the Morgan Stanley number in 5 years is a $3 billion market TAM. And that's the same size as our 25% of the MDI insulin dependent market. So why not try? And as long as it doesn't distract from our engineers and our efforts to improve the MODD-1 pump. John?
Yeah. Hey, well, Jeb, I think that's all very interesting. I think one of the questions that's come up is just if you could go into a little deeper into how your pump differentiates again, and maybe you could even bring up a picture of it from the PowerPoint here too, just to kind of show those that are relatively new to the story what your MODD-1 is.
Yeah, so this is the MODD-1 pump, and since we're on a Zoom, I can also hold it up. So it's a controller that sits on top that lasts for 90 days that we give you for free. And there's a button on top of that operates the device, and everything you need to do, you can do with this button. We have an app that you can have on your phone to tell you, hey, you just bolused. Hey, you want to change, you probably don't want to do that again. Hey, the pump is working fine. Hey, you want to tweak your basal rate. You can do that, but you don't need a phone. And so you've got this reusable that lasts for 90 days. And then that clicks on top of the disposable like this. You can see from the picture with about the complexity of a McDonald's Happy Meal. And then you've got the device. And then this is the set where you use to deliver insulin or a GLP-1 potentially. And you click the two pieces onto this patch that you've put, this adhesive patch that you've put on. And then you use an inserter to put the needle set right next door, and then you click the plastic dome on top of it, and away you go. And if in the 3 days of where you want to put it on pause, set it to the side, etc., you just use the button, put it on pause, unclick, set it to the side. A feature that is not available with the Insulin Omnipod, and it's not available with any other patch pump that we know of right now.
Interesting. So follow-up, sorry to interrupt. The follow-up to this elegant design is your IP portfolio. How does it stand? How have you protected this? Why would someone come in? One of my beliefs is that at some point we're going to wake up one of these mornings and we might see one of the large players in the market looking to add to their balance sheet in some way and to their profit margins by bringing in MODD-1. I know that's not something that you necessarily build to sell, but it would seem it could fit into someone has a very significant distribution system already in the market, might be attracted to MODD-1, especially now that it's FDA cleared.
Well, I think the good news about the FDA clearance is that when you go to the FDA, you want to ideally ask them to only answer one key question. And we know that there have been buttons on devices before, although if you're familiar with the Insulin Omnipod, there is no button on this device. You need a cell phone to actually operate it. Just as a comparison. But I think the good news about the clearance is that it tells you that the FDA is okay with the way we pump insulin, and more than okay, and has validated our claims that we're just as accurate and just as safe when we deliver insulin as the other companies in the space. And that's important because we pump differently than everyone else. We're a 2-part pump. So we get all the economics of reusing the electronics here for 90 days instead of 3. We're a patch pump, so you can wear it discreetly and in a form factor that a lot of people prefer to the tube-based pumps, which you wear on your belt or in your pocket or on your thigh, with 48 inches of tubing that goes into your abdomen every day for the rest of your life. So we think the attractive form factor, but also we have 8 families of patents around the way that we move the insulin. You can't patent pumping insulin, but we've patented various features of how we move the insulin in a way that we think is very safe for the patient in terms of never being able to fail open, because if an insulin pump fails open, it can kill the patient in just a couple minutes. And that is just as accurate as the other pumps, but uses a lot of electronics from consumer electronics. And that enables us to have a much lower cost of goods at scale than the other leading pumps. One, because we're reusing the electronics, and two, because we're reusing electronics from other industries, and 2, because we're just frankly reusing the electronics, period. You think about how precise you have to be to pump insulin. You have to be precise to smaller than a 200th of a drop with about 5% accuracy every time. That's a lot of know-how and our competitors get there by machining. We get there by pumping more frequently and sensing how much we've moved and using a very different method. And that is a major, major proprietary advantage. And as a result, what you're throwing away every 3 days with us is this, which is 12 molded plastic pieces and a coin cell battery. The other guys, you're throwing away the entire pumping mechanism every 3 days, or you have a simple cartridge, but you have a $4,000 upfront under the durable medical device benefit. This does not cost less than $100 to produce, for instance. It's a very complex, finely machined device with 1,300 user configurable options. And this device is still about 30% of the market. So, and that's a Medtronic, by the way. So I don't know. I hope that answered the question in terms of our design and our manufacturability relative. And this is just another shot. This is what's inside an Omnipod. This is what's inside our product. It's just a lot lower cost and easier to manufacture.
And speaking of manufacturing, you have a very significant partner in this, I believe, Philip Medisize. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, Philips Medisize is a $4 billion a year annual turnover contract manufacturer, specializes in medical devices, and is owned by Koch Industries. It's part of Molex. And Philips has partnered with us for more than 2 years on the engineering for this product to make it manufacturable, to make sure that all of our vendors are Philips Medisize certified. And, they've really been a fantastic partner. And they also make other insulin carrying devices. So we're confident that they've got the right inspection regime and the right controls to manufacture our product. And so we've moved the cartridge manufacturing line down to their facility in Mexico. We're in the process of moving the controller line. We moved the cartridge line first because we only need a 30th of these of how many cartridges we need. And we wanted to make sure that the FDA signed off first before we made that final move. And so now we're in the process of qualifying the line and getting it up and running so that we can start to help patients in the United States early next year.
Speaking of that and tied into this, there's 2 questions that have come across. One that's tying into EOFlow, and there was an attempted acquisition of their insulin pump that I believe it's a Korean company that Medtronic was involved with. Can you speak to that, and then also how you are differentiated, where the IP that you have and the product that you have now FDA cleared, MODD-1, would not fall into any issues around, infringing on anyone's.
So the story of the EOFlow acquisition is that Medtronic, who you can see from this chart, still has about 32% share, despite being hemorrhaging share probably since like 05, 06, because they were the original player in the market when they bought the MiniMed franchise from Al Mann. They don't have a patch pump right now, and they attempted to acquire one in May of 23 by tendering to buy a company called EOFlow out of Korea for $738 million in cash. And they announced that acquisition. Insulet sued them EOFlow and a variety of other people for, for trade secret theft, patent infringement, and the like. And in December, Medtronic walked away from the deal. And that complaint basically alleged that the EO patch was a direct copy of an Omnipod, and that the Omnipod, and I can't speak to the validity of the lawsuit, but there were 3 ex-insulin employees who were specifically named in the lawsuit. And one of the claims in the lawsuit was that 65% of the componentry in an EO patch was identical to an Omnipod. And so, I don't think that we'd be subject to the same issues because, as I said, we're the only linear peristaltic pump on the market. We fundamentally pump differently. We're a 2-part pump. They're a 1-part pump. We have a button on our device. They require a cell phone. And the ship of patenting pumping insulin or connecting it to a wireless device or the like, those patents have all expired. That ship sailed some time ago. And so our IP is all around using a sensor to sense what's left in the reservoir, various things that make our product easier to use and enable our method of pumping rather than pumping itself. So you never know, but I think that we're fairly confident that we don't fall afoul of any of those things in the market today. So the deal fell apart in December of last year. Medtronic still would seem to have a need, although we don't have any special insight as to how they're going to fill that need. But obviously they're out there and they have a great brand name and a great franchise in the space.
Thanks, Jeb. Somewhat related to this, speaking of valuation in the marketplace, since you've had the FDA clearance here, how would you say, I believe you're roughly around 70 million market cap right now in your valuation. How would you compare that to what you think the value out is in the market and what, again, like a Medtronic was willing to pay for EOFlow?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's easy to look at the EOFlow acquisition and say, wait a second, that was a very similar device to an Omnipod, and both in design and cost. And our inherent cost advantage, given our design, is, one would think would be an advantage, not a disadvantage. And we target a different segment, so it should be easier to acquire customers, given our differentiated design and our unique user proposition. And I think we just went to an industry trade show a few weeks ago, and we had a lot of inbound interest from people who prescribe these products every day, who said, "Yeah, I can see who I would prescribe that to as soon as you're on the market." So I think we have a lot of confidence that we have a differentiated product. And if you look at EOFlow, when they made that bid, they were not cleared in the US, although they had applied for clearance. They had about 5,000 customer starts worldwide, and they were cleared in Europe and Korea only. So now we're cleared in the US. We're building manufacturing and validating it right now. Does that mean that we deserve to be a tenth of the price? I mean, it's really up to the market to decide that, but there's a lot of daylight between 70 million and 740 million, I would say. There's also never been a cleared pump company that didn't achieve a $300 million valuation after clearance. I hope that we don't set a new standard in that regard. And I'll also say that that company that achieved a $300 million market cap after clearance was Insulet, and that was back in 2009. So you have to translate that, and trying to translate that with inflation into today's dollars does not give you a $300 million market cap. And I know people, and I'll just respond, in advance to one other comment that people make, which is, isn't this space crowded? Aren't there a lot of players? Well, there are a lot of players if you're targeting the 20% of the people who have already adopted pumps, and you're in this World War I style battle for market share in the trenches. We've chosen to go in a different direction. We're going after users who are still on needles, which is still 8 out of 10 people 30 years after pumps were introduced who have not yet adopted technology that would provide them with better care. That's our mission. Our mission is to provide care for the almost pumpers, the people who have considered adopting technology but have not done so because of current pumps are too complex, too costly, or too cumbersome, or some combination thereof. And we're laser focused on doing that and now we have an FDA cleared product that is focused on doing that.
The next question is related. You may not be in a position since you just got clearance to answer this, but it needs to be put on the table. Is that with this clearance, can you discuss how you might commercialize the rollout schedule, anything of that nature that you're prepared to speak to that today?
Well, I think we already said that we were planning to have human use product available early next year, validated, and once you get the clearance, you have to go and validate the manufacturing in the place where it's going to be manufactured, which we're in the process of doing right now. It's also worth noting that the product is, one of the quirks of the FDA clearance process for an insulin pump is you are not allowed to put it on a human being and pump insulin, because the FDA will not allow an experimental pump to fail and kill a patient in a clinical trial. So while we've done usability studies with real life patients, and while we've done exhaustive testing to the FDA's satisfaction of how the product pumps insulin in a way that shows that it's safe, we need to get a little bit of real world experience in how someone would interact with the product. And so we're planning to do an investigational study somewhere that speaks English, but that isn't the United States, while we're waiting for the FDA validated product coming off the manufacturing line to be ready, so that we can get some of that valuable user experience and get this product into the hands of more patients sooner rather than later. So that's underway. We can lever off the US clearance and the US testing we've already done to go for clearance in a variety of international markets, because we think there's a huge appeal for this product overseas, both in places where that might be somewhat smaller but have great reimbursement, to markets where there's a mandate for patients to be wearing a pump, but there's no pump that meets the pricing criteria that the payer needs. And in a lot of single payer healthcare systems, there's a shortage of nurses, and there aren't enough nurses to dedicate the multiple days of in-person training that are required to use our competitors' products. And I think our product is ideal for those markets, both from a cost and a distribution and a ease of training aspect. So there's a lot to do. And then there's a whole bunch of, there are a whole bunch of things that we want to do to optimize the product for manufacturability, because when you're in the FDA process, you can't change anything. And so, there are additional features that we want to go back to the agency and add, not because we need them, but because we think that it would help in terms of expanding the market further and integrating us further into the diabetes device ecosystem. And some of those things require a 510(k) clearance, some of them don't. But we're going to work through all of those things, and some of them we'll have accomplished before we actually start marketing the product in the US.
There was a specific question in regards to UK and Europe. There's any sort of update since we had the clearance? I know you just got US last week, but do you have any?
So I'm sure whoever's asking this question has seen this slide, which is that Europe has, it represents a very significant market for diabetes wearable devices, but is not well penetrated, both because of the single payer systems and the training burden, the cost burden, and also, frankly, widely varying rates of diabetes. Like, I did not know that Finland had the highest rate of diabetes in Western Europe, but it does. And that seems to be some combination. I think that's largely a heredity type factor. So, and every country has a different scheme in terms of how they reimburse and what the distribution plan is, et cetera. So we want to, now that we've got the FDA clearance in hand, we're going to immediately commence on working on the CE mark process and working on the UK clearance process, which is not the CE mark process anymore, in order to get our product available on the market as soon as possible in these other geographies, because we think some of these markets might be very, very attractive. Probably the market that we've fleshed out the most is the UK, where you've got a mandate that every pediatric type 1 needs to be on a pump. And despite that, because they've standardized on one of our competitors, Medtronic, the pricing is such that they can only afford to do 1 out of every 3 kids. So with the pricing that we would have at scale, we could do every kid and offer them an easier experience and a easier to use form factor. So I think we want to pursue that opportunity as quickly as we can. There are other countries too where you can basically lever the US clearance to file there and get a clearance in 5 or 6 months. So, look for more progress on that front too.
Okay, thank you. Getting back to the significant GLP-1 opportunity, there's a question related to that that says, would folks with diabetes, do you believe, would be able to use both insulin and Victoza and or combine them, or are they thinking initially just GLP-1 only? Can you speak to that?
Great question. So obviously, initially, we want to target our label to be as similar in this opportunity to be as similar as possible to the original product. And the original product that we're trialing first here is only labeled for use in people with type 2 diabetes, even though it's a 3 times a day bolus. So Victoza is one example of one of the GLP-1s that's frankly been around for a long time. That's an injectable that is used to manage blood sugar and has a lesser weight loss claim than what we've seen with Ozempic and Mounjaro. The short answer is yes, we're planning to target this to people with diabetes initially. And would you use this in conjunction with insulin? So remember that we have a dual chamber pump that's 95% finished that reuses 98% of the componentry of our single chamber pump. So that matters very little when your single chamber pump isn't cleared. But now that it is cleared, it makes one think that, maybe there is an opportunity. If we can show efficacy in a single chamber pump that's delivering a GLP-1, why couldn't we deliver a GLP-1 and insulin for people that want both in a single solution? And I think that would be a great initial application for a dual chamber pump. But remember, there's no predicate device for a dual chamber pump. So it's a different level of regulatory risk and different level of cost in terms of getting one cleared. So we would want to see efficacy in both of them as individual solutions before we went whole hog on doing both in a single product. Right? Because the power of the combination should be obvious from having 2 distinct products, and then you just be putting them together, right? Clinically. So it's just like trying to get the pump cleared before we add ACE designation and all the other bells and whistles, because walk before you can run. It's a very big part of our FDA strategy. And there are a lot of different drugs that we could put in that dual chamber, frankly. And so we want to evaluate which one offers the best risk return for our shareholders before we do anything on that front.
Makes sense. I think one of the questions related to where does this know-how and understanding come from within your organization, and how have you added to it? Speaking specifically to Paul DePerna and his experience in founding Tandem Diabetes, maybe can you tie that together, and then who you've added to the team to give you this know-how as a small company?
So in terms of overall know-how, remember that Paul not only founded Tandem, but has 70 patents on microfluidics. He's an expert in how to do this and how to architect a product safely. And I think the fact that we got through the agency, given the size of the company with only one set of questions, is a testament to him and to the team in terms of how well we did, in terms of anticipating what they might be asking about and how we could convince them that our product was safe and effective. So kudos to them, but also kudos for thinking far enough ahead to say, okay, well, this is a platform, and yes, we're going to get it cleared for insulin, but what else could we use it for? And for a long time, we've thought that there would be a long-term benefit in pre-filling the product. Now, when we tested this with users, there's a great Harvard Medical School study that says that brand loyalty in insulin flavors is as high as any pharmaceutical product that they've ever tested. When you look at products with identical labels, people love their Novolog and they love their Humalog. And so given that all current pumps are self-fill and allow you to make that choice yourself, I don't think we can really influence people's choice of insulin unless we're offering them something that looks like better care. And simply including the insulin with the cartridge is not enough. You have to offer them better care, like you could with a dual chamber pump if it was delivering both insulin and a GLP-1, or insulin and something else. And so we, from the beginning, dealt with all the heartache of using this kind of plastic that's good for pre-fill, but that's kind of a nightmare to work with at times in terms of its material properties. And so now we've come out the other side and we have a product that's designed from the ground up to be pre-fillable. And where did that expertise come from? That's something we thought about right at the very beginning, frankly. And then the user data said, well, don't do that initially, do that later. And honestly, that adds a whole nother level of regulatory complexity, because unlike our predicate device, how long would the FDA require us to keep a cartridge in the fridge to show that, what if you delivered 10 cartridges to the patient and one of them fell behind the milk, and 9 months later they grabbed it and said, I'm going to use this now. You have to make sure that the patients are safe and well cared for there. So we didn't know how much time that testing would take, so we didn't do it on the first go round. But in this scenario, we'd have to, and that's another reason why we would want to have a partner, because at the end of the day, we're a device company. We're not a drug company, and this would be a drug device combo. And pharmaceutical companies tend to have a earlier in and much more hands-on approach to working with a device like this. But really, is it that different than an auto-injector pen that you would use to deliver a GLP-1 today that's included with the drug? No, it's not. I don't think it's that different. It's just a different way of delivering the product. And but because of that, it has to be cheap enough to be included with the price of the product. Unfortunately, the average reimbursement rate for a GLP-1 right now is over $1,200 a month. Our base case assumption for reimbursement rates in pumps is, for our pump, would be over about $4,000 a year. So there's plenty of room there to both save the system money, include our pump, and still have the drug have really nice margins.
Related to price, what do you believe the retail selling price for the product will be? And again, how will the patient, can you give us a little background of how the patient will actually get your device? Does the doctor write a script? Does he, how's the system work?
Are we talking GLP-1 here? Or are we talking insulin?
I think we're talking insulin back on that.
It sounds like we're talking insulin, because I think it's a little premature to be talking about price.
Yeah.
If we haven't even, shown the efficacy of the drug yet. I think I've just commented about the pricing umbrella that exists in GLP-1s right now that would allow you to include the pump with it, in a more efficacious fashion. So, okay, so we're talking insulin here. So in insulin, there are a couple different ways you can sell the product. So the endocrinologist says you're eligible for a pump, writes a script for you, and then gives it to and then gives you the script and says, congratulations, you're eligible for a pump. Call the reps for the current products, and they'll come to your house, and they actually come to your house and do a feature and benefit sale as to why you should pick their pump. And then you go back and you talk to a nurse diabetes educator about which pump is right for you. And those people are Switzerland, and they drive pump choice. And so we want to be one of those 4 or 5 options that's on the table, and we'll get our fair share of those patients, because of our superior economics, we can offer first month free. We can offer point of prescription couponing. We can offer copay buy downs, and we can offer you 2 different choices in reimbursement. We think long term you want to be on the pharmaceutical benefit, because that's where Insulet has made a lot of headway, and our pricing studies say with a 10 to 20% rebate versus Insulet, we could be equal or preferred day one on the PBM benefit. But I don't think we want to ignore the DME benefit, because there are certain categories of patients, like Medicare, for example, where DME is the only way to get a pump. And there, even if we use the same discount, 10 to 20%, there's a significant upfront there for the patient. And there are other distribution channels that we could use to access those patients. And so that model is something like $4,000 using the existing code for a pump, and it's generic to any pump, and then $14 a day in the existing reimbursement structure. So that would be a much more front-end loaded selling method. And I don't want to confuse people. At the end of at scale, we want to be on PBM. At scale, we want to ramp the product and make it so that the patient copay is what they would copay for a pharmaceutical, and have no upfront. But initially, when we have very small volumes, I think we want to try and access as many patients as we can in both DME and PBM. Does that answer the question, John?
I believe it did.
Okay.
There's 2 related questions regarding the potential buyer's market for Modular Medical. If that's a course that we might go down, could you speculate on who is in the market that might find this attractive?
Well, I guess I would generally say, and obviously I'm slightly biased here, um, what we have is so different from everyone else that it could be additive to any player who's in the space right now. And it could also be additive to anyone who's looked at the space and said, I can't go there because I don't have a differentiated solution that targets a different market. I think if you came with a Me Too product that looks like a T-Slim or a Medtronic or an Omnipod right now, you're looking at 10 years and $500 million in order to get traction. I think you have to have something different. I mean, we look at the success of Beta Bionics over the last year. They have a, tube-based form factor that looks a lot like a mini med, but they have an easier to use algorithm that sits on top of it. And they've done very well with a certain group of patients. I think that kind of product segmentation is really important. And we need more innovation like that in the market. And we target a very different segment than they do, but we also have gone for simplicity. And so I think that's part of it. But in terms of the other buyers, potential buyers, we represent a significantly lower cost solution for insulin at scale, and with a product that's very similar to them in terms of form factor. We offer a patch pump for Medtronic, who doesn't have one right now. We'd be additive for Tandem because their patch pump, they're not planning to submit to the FDA until 2027. And frankly, our messaging fits very, very well with Abbott with their Freestyle Libre, either as a marketing partner or as an owner, potentially. And certainly Dexcom as well. There's nothing that we can't do mechanically that the other pumps can do. We have Bluetooth, we have NFC, we have the same kind of pumping precision. We're able to pump at low volumes, and we have the space on our processors to run AID algorithms that everyone else has. So we've chosen to make the interface easier to use, to target and simpler to target a different base of users. But that doesn't mean that that we want to completely forego the high end at some point in the future, or that someone else couldn't take us there in the future if they wanted to with this asset.
Is there any issue with a foreign company that'd like to get exposure to the U.S.? Is there any issue with them buying regulatory or otherwise?
Not that we know of. I mean, Roche has been in this business before here in the States, and they just launched a new CGM and a new pump in Europe, so I think they're going to be here again. Other foreign companies have had products here too in the past, so I don't think that would be an issue either for a buyer or someone commercializing.
Okay. Well, Jeb, we kept you a bit over what we promised, but there was a lot of questions here, and I want to thank everybody that participated today, and all your questions and your attention, time, and I look forward to having you, Jeb, back on future programs as you continue to progress and the excitement grows around that progress in GLP-1 and with your newly FDA cleared insulin pump. I guess I would ask you, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we sign off today? And again, I remind all of you that we will have this video published later today at the Tribe Public YouTube channel. And then all of you that are participated, we'll include you on our Tribe This Week, which comes out every Friday at about, I do my best to try to get it out 15 minutes after the market closes. And it's just a simple thing that ties us together and reminds you that you have access to leaders of industry around the world, including Jeb at Modular Medical that trades on the Nasdaq symbol MODD. By just submitting the names of these leaders through our wish list process. So remind you to do that, and let's continue to do that. And also remind you that Jeb is seeking to get out across our 34 Tribe event sites to host luncheon events and dinner events to create awareness around his company and his product now that's FDA cleared. So express your interest in seeing him and meeting him and learning from the process as we move forward. Jeb, is there anything you'd like to end with?
I guess I would just say this is an exciting time for us, but two, we've been on the FDA treadmill for most of this year. And now I wouldn't say that we're off it because there's always more to do, but I think you can anticipate a greater velocity of progress and announcements now that we're not on statutory timelines. So I'd say stay tuned.
Okay.
We're gonna have a lot to say.
Well, thanks again, Jeb, for participating today, and we look forward to getting on. I apologize we didn't get all questions answered, but no, we can seek to get Jeb back on if there's additional interest in questions, or if you just specifically have other questions, just serve them to me, and I'll try to get them addressed directly with Jeb. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing many of you in the tribe across the world and across the U.S. here soon. And thank you, Jeb. We'll see you soon, and good luck in the meantime.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the time.